Jesus and his mom walk into a bar. This whole passage is like the setup to the punchline of a joke. There are lots of good reasons to not drink alcohol, but declaring outright that the scriptures say so isn't one of them. For we're one chapter into the Gospel of John, and Jesus is already at the bar. He's just recruited his first disciples, and he's about to overturn the tables of the money changers in the temple. He's got a wedding in between, and it's time for a drink. This story comes to us with the innocent title in our Bibles, The Wedding at Cana. But let's not kid ourselves. This is not about the church service or the wedding party speeches. This entire story takes place at the bar. We've cut to the after party, and the open bar is pouring like there's no tomorrow. In fact, it seems to have been open for a while, for the wine is out and the wedding guests are annoyed and questioning whether they should really have splurged for the Williams-Sonoma registry. Jesus's mom sees the severity of the situation and calls her son into action. "Mom," is his reply. You see, this is why priests don't tell people what they do in public settings. Sitting next to a stranger on an airplane, forget it, because then their problems become your problems. And before you know it, you're listening to somebody's relationship breakdown when all you wanted were the free pretzels and the beer nuts and whatever they're pouring at the bar. But Jesus's mom has spoiled her son's anonymity, so it's back to working on the weekend again for Jesus. Why is it that so many people feel more accepted and comfortable at a bar than at church? Is it not at least interesting that our church buildings have been closed for a good percentage of the pandemic? Meanwhile, the LCBO hasn't skipped a day. I don't say that with judgment. For when it's virtual school for the kids and both partners working, "I need a drink" comes to one's lips more easily than "I need to get to church." I grew up watching the show Cheers, where they'd yell, "Norm," when he walked into the bar. And the theme song reminded you that that's where everybody knows your name, and you're always glad you came. I wonder if there's not something about the fellowship of the bar table that feels more authentic for many than the perceived performance of church. You know I need this drink, and I know you need that drink. And on the level playing field, we can connect to strangers who nonetheless share a common need. At the bar, everyone can admit that they don't have it all together and settle into the knowledge of that. At church, everyone feels they must look like they've got it all together and have all the answers. Maybe that's why we sit in pews. Maybe that's why we sit in pews and just face forward at the so-called expert, because if we were to face one another, the cracks would start to show, or maybe we'd crack up laughing and the facade would crumble. Early on in the pandemic, my neighbor across the street shared with me a meme that was circulating on social media. He said, "You know how you figure out your COVID alcoholic name? It's your first name followed by your last name." That joke is funny because of the recognition, and it's told in the shared fellowship that we don't have it all together. And that joke is dead sober. because we know people, and maybe they're staring back at us in the mirror, who have gone down that road and it ain't been pretty. What if the church were more like an AA meeting? By showing up, we were quietly saying out loud that we need some help. First names are enough. Probably a good idea to have a sponsor who's been there before. I can't get through this without a higher power. Of all the disparaging comments that were leveled at Jesus, there was one that stuck. His critics all agreed that he was, quote, a glutton and a drunkard. Of course, he wasn't. But the names didn't come out of thin air. It was true that he could often be found at the bar or at outrageous dinner parties or hanging out with people no one else would be caught dead with. And he accepted these titles, if you will, because the people saying them weren't interested in following him anyway. For it was religious folks who said these things, those who were obsessed with image management and appearing like they had it all together. By allowing himself to be known as a drunk, Jesus was free to hang out at the bar with those who were doing the drinking, who knew that they didn't have it all together and were therefore open to following someone who promised something different. If I'm in a conversation at a party and it later comes up that I'm a priest, inevitably the immediate response is A, look of horror, and B, I'm so sorry that I swore, to which I normally swear right away just so that they know it's okay. But when Jesus walked into the bar, all you could hear was Norm. They were always glad when he came. If you were to strip down our church sanctuary to its essential design, you'd find two pieces of furniture. One, the pulpit, where the preacher shares the word of God. Two, the altar, where the priest breaks open the body and blood of God. My friends, the altar is the bar, the table where we pour the drinks for souls who've had a hell of a week, and the next one is not shaping up to be much better. And it's only top shelf stuff here. Jesus has kept the good wine till now, and the wine is himself, his very body and blood. Jesus and his mom walk into a bar, and the punchline is this: he is the wine too. And this wine will not get you smashed to oblivion, but put you back together again. Will not leave you lying on the bathroom floor, but raise you up to the throne of God. Will not fill you with regret, but restore you to thanksgiving. Jesus did this, the first of his signs, in Cana of Galilee, and revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him.